Hello, my name's Jim Stime. I'm the LA Fish Guy. We need to go and service that fancy curved shower tank today, and I thought I would take the opportunity just to kind of go over the basics of how an aquarium, a saltwater aquarium, is serviced from an aquarium maintenance standpoint. So with that in mind, we're going to start off by filling these jugs of water from the big container. We've had real ocean water delivered here, about 500 gallons every 2 weeks. We'll dispense it out of those containers into these 5-gallon jugs, and then we'll carry those into the house where we can do the water change there. So why 5-gallon jugs? Well, I suppose I could put that 100-gallon container in the van, fill it all the way up, but I don't need 100 gallons. If I drive around with a partially empty container that's going to slosh back and forth, it's probably in the long run going to have an issue with my transmission or brakes. Could I make the salt water there? Could. I'm only doing a 20-gallon water change, so I don't think there's a whole lot of need to make the water there when it's already pre-blended and ready to go here. I could just easily carry it out in 5-gallon jugs. So that takes care of the water portion of the job. We now need to deal with the decoration part of the job. And depending upon what type of tank it is, whether it be a living coral reef or a fish-only system, kind of determines the decorations. This large fancy aquarium in the bathroom of this house is a fish-only system that has the dead coral skeletons in it and some of those silk or plastic plants. So we need to get those prepared for this job as well. For me, from my point of view or business point of view, or my style of aquarium maintenance, when it comes to those decorations, typically it's the dead coral skeletons. At one time, this was alive. It's been harvested, it's been cleaned of the living tissue, and it's now a decoration itself. The advantage for me is it has that marine or ocean look to it still. But the fact that it's a calcium skeleton allows me to put it in the tank. It's going to get dirty within time. I can then take that same coral skeleton out and bleach it and rinse it so it becomes clean once again. So all of my customers have 2 sets of decorations. One in the tank that's getting dirty. One that I've got here at home, I'll bleach it in advance of that service and take out and just rotate those corals in and out. This is how I clean them. These coral decorations, as I mentioned, can be put into a container of bleach water so that they can be bleached free of the algae that's grown upon them. We'll then take and move them over into a rinse container, which is fresh water, which allows that coral decoration to be rinsed free of any of the residual bleach that might still be within it, because that would become a real problem in an aquarium. Once those corals have soaked anywhere from 6 hours to overnight, you always want to use your nose as the guideline. Can you smell bleach on the rinsed coral? If so, continue to rinse it. If it smells clean of the bleach, you're ready to use it in the aquarium. So now we've got our coral decorations in a little styrofoam container loaded here in the van. We've also got that salt water and reverse osmosis replenishment water loaded in the back of the van. So now we just need to make sure we've got a few extra tools with us. This particular tank is tall and narrow. Because it's so tall and narrow, we've had to load our large ladder into the van, and we'll be using the long pad, the pad on a long stick, as well as the tongs to retrieve the corals in and out of the tank. But there's still another very important tool that we need to take along. And that important tool is your 5-gallon bucket. Not only is this a container that carries some more essential tools for the job, but it's also what you're going to dispense the old dirty water into. You might be dispensing the new clean water into. You might be mixing up new water in the bucket. So buckets with an aquarium service business are a staple item. Inside the bucket, we've got our siphon vacuum. This is used for vacuuming the debris out of the gravel at the bottom of the tank. We'll siphon that water into the 5-gallon buckets. Water changes, or the result of vacuuming the gravel in the tank, are one of the most important things you can do. Additionally, there's our hydrometer. We've also got in here scrub pads and cleaning pads. If you're doing a glass tank or an acrylic tank, there is a difference in the material used on these cleaning pads. And then we've also got here our acrylic polish, which is when the job is over, we'll use to clean the outside of the aquarium, because the presentation inside and outside are just as important as each other. All right, I think we've got everything loaded. Let's go get to work. It's Jim here to service the aquarium. And welcome to Villa Montagna. This is the location of the shower tank, a curved aquarium which is 8 foot on its outer side and about 5 foot on its inner side, 42 inches tall, and it separates the shower from the rest of the bathroom. So we've arrived. We're going to start loading all of our supplies and clean corals in the house now. And as I mentioned, this is that fancy shower aquarium, where it is half of the shower. As you can see. So you can now see why I needed the ladder. We'll start off by putting some towels and a utility blanket down to catch any spills or drips, because invariably there's always going to be a little bit of spillage or drippage. And we'll go ahead and put down some towels so we've got a dry, safe place to set the coral decorations down on. And then you can see we've got doors here above the top of the aquarium for gaining access into the top of the tank. And you can see there's access to the filtration down below the aquarium. This tank has an internal overflow box right up there in that top corner, and it actually exits the end or the side of the tank, passes down through a PVC pipe, and comes down over the top of this wet-dry trickle filter and rains down through those plastic bio balls, where it's ultimately picked up by that submersible water pump, returns back up into the tank, into a discharge right there at the corner or end of the tank. Again, this is a tall, narrow tank, so this wet-dry trickle filter more than capably compensates or aerates the tank and provides the appropriate amount of oxygen for these fish. You can also see that because it's a tall, narrow tank, I've added an additional water pump that actually draws from the bottom of the tank, brings that water down to that pump, high volume, low amp water pump, and returns it. There's a return there, and there's also way down at the other end of this tank return back here. Again, because of its tall and narrow nature, it's going to become an oxygen issue inside the tank. So again, I had to do two things that made this tank capable for keeping fish. And what I mean by that is, again, come back to the oxygen issue. If this tank was an under gravel filter or something like that, you'd have to have air bubbles inside of the tank, because here's where most of the oxygen is going to enter the aquarium, unless you have a wet-dry trickle filter, which as that water splashes down through those bioballs, it's able to become exposed to all of the air or atmosphere, and it picks up a tremendous amount of oxygen. The tank also happens to be stocked with, as you see, the coral decorations, sea fans, there's some silk plants in there, and then there are 5 very large Heniochus butterfly fish, along with a couple of pair of clownfish and a scattering of damsels in the tank. So we're going to start servicing this tank, make it a point to come on back for part 2 and see how we go about the process of cleaning or servicing this aquarium.